My dad stood up during dinner holding adoption papers and smiling proudly at his stepdaughter. "This is the happiest day of my life," he announced. I smiled too, because I already knew what he hadn't realized yet. My father spent years telling people divorce changes priorities. Interesting phrase, because somehow his new priorities always seemed to involve forgetting he already had a daughter. After my parents split, Dad remarried quickly. His new wife, Vanessa, came with a 6-year-old daughter named Chloe. And almost overnight, my father transformed into the attentive parent I used to beg him to become for me. School pickups, dance recitals, birthday trips, things he once called too busy for suddenly became effortless when Chloe asked. To be fair, Chloe wasn't the problem. She was sweet, funny, completely innocent in all this. If anything, she loved me harder than anyone else in that house ever did. Dad kept insisting we were becoming one family, but what he really meant was everyone should quietly adjust around his new happiness. By college, I stopped arguing about it. No dramatic fights, no emotional speeches, just distance. Then, one Sunday, Dad invited everyone to an expensive restaurant downtown. Private room, champagne already waiting at the table. Vanessa looked emotional before dinner even started. I knew immediately something performative was coming. Sure enough, halfway through the meal, Dad stood up holding a folder. Chloe gasped the second she saw it. Official adoption paperwork. Dad smiled proudly. "This is the happiest day of my life," he announced. Everyone clapped instantly. Vanessa cried. Chloe threw her arms around him. And me, I smiled too, because unlike everyone else at that table, I already knew what my father hadn't discovered yet. Dad kept talking while the waiter poured champagne around the table. "Family isn't always blood," he said emotionally, resting a hand on Chloe's shoulder. Interesting statement from a man who slowly stopped calling his biological daughter unless reminded by calendar notifications. Still, I clapped politely with everyone else. Because despite everything, Chloe looked genuinely happy. And none of this was her fault. Vanessa wiped tears carefully while guests congratulated my father for being such an incredible dad. That phrase almost made me laugh out loud. Not because it was false for Chloe, because it had never been true for me. Then Dad raised his glass toward me specifically. "I hope this proves there's enough love for everyone," he said warmly. There it was, the public performance version of him, the one who spoke in inspirational quotes whenever accountability got too close. I smiled softly and lifted my glass to, "Oh, I already know that," I replied. For a second, something in his expression shifted. Tiny, almost invisible, like some buried instinct recognized danger before his brain caught up. Then Chloe reached for my hand under the table and squeezed it excitedly. "Now we're officially sisters forever," she whispered. That hurt unexpectedly because she meant it completely, and part of me wished family worked the way children believe it does before adults complicate everything. Dad sat back down looking proud enough to glow. Then he opened the folder again to show everyone the finalized paperwork. That's when I saw it. The same law firm logo I recognized immediately from the unopened envelope sitting in my apartment drawer. My stomach tightened instantly because 3 weeks earlier, I'd received paperwork from that exact firm informing me about my grandfather's estate review hearing, a hearing my father forgot I was included in. More specifically, a hearing connected to the trust fund he assumed Chloe would eventually inherit beside me. Except there was one condition buried in Grandpa's will, one very specific condition Dad clearly never bothered reading carefully. The inheritance transferred only to direct biological descendants. And adoption, according to the trust language, changed nothing legally. meaning the moment Dad finalized Chloe's adoption publicly tonight. He unknowingly guaranteed she'd receive absolutely none of the fortune he thought he was securing for her. I sat there quietly while laughter and congratulations continued around the table. Champagne glasses clinked. Vanessa kept crying happily. Dad looked like a man convinced he'd just completed some heroic act of love. Meanwhile, my stomach twisted harder with every passing second, because suddenly, this dinner didn't feel celebratory anymore. It felt tragic, not for my father, for Chloe. She sat beside him smiling proudly, completely unaware that the future he thought he secured for her had just disappeared in front of witnesses and dessert menus. I tried telling myself it wasn't my responsibility. After all, Dad had spent years making decisions without considering me, ignoring calls, forgetting birthdays, treating my existence like an obligation competing with his new life. But Chloe wasn't him, and she didn't deserve to become collateral damage in an emotional war she never started. So when Dad excused himself briefly to take a call near the hallway, I followed him. "Hey," I said quietly. He turned, still smiling from the dinner attention. "What's up?" I glanced back toward the private room before lowering my voice. "You should read Grandpa's trust documents again." His smile faded slightly. "What?" "The inheritance clause," I continued carefully. "It only transfers to biological descendants." He stared at me blankly for 2 full seconds, then laughed once. "Nice try." I didn't laugh back. That's when his expression changed. Small at first, then rapidly. Confusion, calculation, fear. "You're serious?" I nodded slowly. "I got notified about the estate hearing last month." His face lost color immediately. "That can't be right." Interesting phrase. Because people say that can't be right when they really mean I never imagined consequences applying to me personally. He grabbed his phone instantly and stepped farther into the hallway, already searching contacts with shaking fingers. I should have felt satisfied, maybe even vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired, because standing there watching panic replace celebration on my father's face, I realized something painful. He never actually checked whether Chloe would be protected financially. He simply assumed things would work out because they usually did for him. Then he looked back at me with genuine fear for the first time in years. Not fear of losing money, fear of hurting Chloe. And quietly, almost desperately, he asked the question too late. "What do I do now?" For a moment, I just looked at him. My father, a man who spent years overlooking me so completely that he never noticed I stopped expecting anything from him at all. And yet, standing there in that restaurant hallway, he suddenly looked smaller than I remembered. Not powerful, not confident, just scared. "I don't know," I answered honestly, because for once, there wasn't an easy emotional shortcut available. No speech about love fixing everything. No family photo moment waiting to smooth consequences away. Inside the private room, Chloe's laughter drifted into the hallway while waiters carried out dessert. Completely innocent, completely trusting. Dad pressed a hand against his forehead. "I was trying to do the right thing," he whispered. Interesting sentence. Because intentions matter emotionally, but paperwork doesn't care about intentions. Neither do consequences. I thought about all the years I spent wanting him to fight this hard for me, to worry about my future, to notice damage before it became permanent. But standing there, I realized something unexpected. I didn't want revenge anymore. I just didn't want Chloe to grow up feeling invisible the way I did. She still needs a father more than she needs inheritance money, I said quietly. Dad looked up slowly after that, and for the first time in years, I think he finally heard me as more than background noise in his new life. Inside the restaurant, Chloe called excitedly for both of us to come back. Dad wiped his eyes quickly before answering her. And somehow, watching him walk toward her with fear instead of performance finally attached to his love, felt more honest than the adoption speech ever did. Your one click can keep these stories alive. Subscribe, because every voice deserves to be heard.